Okay, so if we have a text file, and let me use black here. Right, so this is our document, and it's got a lot of code in it. As over time, you're writing pretty linearly, right? And then maybe at some point you go back and you change a line here, and you add another line down here, and then you go back, and so this is another session where you edited the same file. And then another week goes by, and you come back and you add some more to it. And maybe you go back and realize, oh, you made a mistake somewhere else, and you do a few more edits. So we can look at your document as a series of changes through time. So we first have the original version, and then we have the version with the red edits, and then finally the one with the green edits. Okay, so we can reconstruct the final version of the document by going through steps 1 through 3 in that order. And if I ever wanted to go and see what happened, say on September 2nd when I did this one, I will just remove all the green changes, and all of a sudden my document looks like it did on September 2nd. Okay, maybe you've used like Microsoft Word track changes. Have we done this? Like, raise your hand. Have you done the track changes in Microsoft Word, like review? Okay, it's something similar to this. It's the idea is that generally when you are working a document, after you hit Control S and save it, all of these colors go away, and it is just a flat text file, and the time of these changes is lost. The tool we're going to use, Git, is a program that keeps track of the time when every part of your document was edited. Okay? And we'll call these times here discrete instances. These will be in little boxes. You can imagine them as beads on a necklace. And to recreate the document, we just can start at step 1, apply changes that occurred in 2, apply changes that occurred in 3, and then you'll get your final document. Okay? Each one of these boxes is called a commit. Okay, so we'll have the initial commit, which is the original document, and then the next set of changes, the next set of changes, etc. Okay, now it's up to you when you want to make a commit. It's not just hitting Control S to save a document. You might do several edits and decide, okay, I'm going to bundle all those edits as part of this number 2 commit, and then I'll be done. That's my job, right? So, for example, right now, or in a moment, you're going to use PyCharm to retrieve commit number 1 for the Battleship game. I've already written some code and committed it using the Git tool and created this orange box number 1. Your lab 1, you're going to do a bunch of edits, and when you're done with lab 1, you're going to create a commit with all your changes. And so the new document, the new program will be constructed by this starting point, which I'll give you, as well as your changes to that document, and then that'll be lab 1. To start lab 3, I'm going to produce a commit, lab 2, I'm going to produce a box, right? This is you. And this is me. And we're going to have this bounce back and forth. You're going to produce a commit, then I'm going to produce a commit. You're going to do one, then I'm going to do one. Okay? And the combination of our code is going to create the final program. But if at any point in time you want to go back and see what your code looked like at lab 1, you could just tell Git to go back to commit number 2. Okay, so I guess what it's really going to look like, if I am the orange person and you're the red person, the beads on your necklace are going to have this pattern. and then time's going to go this way. And so the orange boxes will be a start commit, like lab 1 start, lab 2 start, and then the magenta ones would be I'm done with it. Lab 1 done, lab 2 done. Okay? We'll talk about how to use Git and go over this idea again after you've done it for a week. But that's what's going to happen behind the scenes. And I think hopefully you'll realize what a good tool this is in order to set up collaboration with multiple coders. We'll have to be careful though to make sure that our commits don't conflict. Okay, imagine that in this document here, right, there was a order to these boxes, okay? Meaning that before I applied the green edit, you see this green edit, I had to have applied the red edit. Does that make sense? If I try to apply the green edit to the black document, it doesn't make any sense, right? The green edit says go to line 6 here and change a little portion of it. And if there is no red, if the red commit never happened, the green change is confusing and doesn't make any sense, right? So the one down here that's on the red doesn't make any sense. Do you understand this? Like, so my point here, and you'll see in the code, we need to make sure we're not clobbering each other's changes. Like if I want to change a particular line to say the dog jumps over the fence and you want to say the cat jumps over the fence, we're editing the same line and this is a problem, right? Git's not magic. If we're typing in the same Google document and we're both backspacing over each other, things are bad, right? The best way to do it is that I work on the first paragraph of the document and you work on the second paragraph and then the third and the fourth, and we have these areas and we don't touch each other's stuff. Okay, so we're still going to have to respect each other. It's not a magic tool that's going to be able to intuit your changes. Oh, well, Brooklyn's actually, she's better than Marco, and so her edits somehow take precedence to Marco's edits, right? If you both try to change line 3, Git is going to complain. It's going to go, gosh, you boys are fighting, you figure it out, and I give up. And we don't want to have that problem. So you'll see in my code, I really explicitly lay out where you should put your code. And don't touch any other parts of the file. Because later on, when I give you lab 2, if you've messed with the document and actually deleted some portion of it, when this patch comes in and tries to add or modify a little chunk of code, it goes, oh my God, that little spot I was going to edit is gone. You're going to have a problem. Okay, and I think that's about all we need to know of Git so far. Okay, so let's go ahead now and actually try to create this Battleship project. So far you've been doing the same Python project. We set up PyCharm, we called it class demo, or at least I did. Now you're going to create a new Python project. And we'll call it Battleship. But follow me carefully here, because we're going to create it not from scratch. You're going to request it from me. Okay, so I'm going to share my desktop here, and please follow along very carefully. So first of all, let me show you where the code lives. Go to open up a web browser and go to https git.wadsworth.net, and I'll post this link in the class chat as well. All right, so you should be able to get to this link and see this view here. And if you go to the top, you should be able to click repository. And these are the files that create the project. All right, this is now a fully fledged Python program and not like a toy. So hangman.py I would consider more of a demo learning example, and now we've actually got some real pieces of a program here. Multiple Python files, a README, something called assets, and we'll talk about all of this. Right? But if you scroll down, you can see the explanation in the README file of how this lab works. Can everyone get to this site? Okay. And so you see Lab 1, Introduction to Pygame, you need to put code in 2 locations. And once you've put code in those locations, you should be able to run it and get it to work. This README file will get progressively more complex each week, right? Each week, when you pull down my changes, one of my changes is going to be to add new stuff to this README file for Lab 2, Lab 3, Lab 4, Lab 5. Okay? But you can come here and get a feeling for what's required. Don't go and changing any other parts of the code besides what's listed in the README here. Okay, so you can click around and actually see this rendered in the browser just like we did with the Hangman code. Okay. But of course, this is no way to deal with code, and I don't want you copying and pasting this. Okay. So instead, we're going to use the tool git to actually clone this repository down to our computer. Okay. So now go ahead and in PyCharm say close to your current project, and you'll get this screen. Okay. And notice on the main menu here, you've got new project, which we've done, open, which I think is self-explanatory, and then get from version control. And that's what we want. Okay? So go ahead and click get from version control, and you see the version control program we're using is GIT. There are other version control programs, Mercurial, Subversion. They're not nearly as popular, and we're not going to worry about them. Okay. You need to tell Git where it can find that first orange commit, block number 1. Okay. And it can find it at this site, Battleship. So we can say Control C up here and put Control V, and the only thing to add is .git at the end, because we don't want the web page, we actually want the Git repository. So that's a file. All right. So we'll click clone, and that's going to go out to this site and actually pull down all these files and create a Python project from it. So now you see we have main.py in our PyCharm. All right, so I'll give everyone a moment to get to this point here. Let me know either verbally or through the chat if you're having issues. It's be so sad if you're not able to do the lab this week just from technical issues with PyCharm.
Sir, I haven't been able to get to the main window where you can click the other option.
Okay, so on the top, go to File, Close Project, and then you'll go back to the splash page. All right.
Sir, when I try and download it or clone it, it says that the folder is not empty or something and it won't clone.
Okay, so if you've tried to do this multiple times, then you might already have a project there. In that case, you want to go to your Windows Explorer, and you want to go, the default location, at least on my machine, is if you go to this PC, users, and then you see PyCharm projects. So I'll paste this path. It won't be for you. Replace Donna with your M number, right? That should be where your Python projects are. And if you see something that's already called Battleship, or really anything besides like your class demo, you should go and delete those folders.
So, sir, I was trying to log into this website. So you have to download.
So there's nothing really to do. The website's kind of view only for you, right? You don't have an account. You don't have any edit permissions. There's nothing to do except use that as a reference. We're going to interact with this web platform through a tool called Git. And there's more to be said on how Git works and what's really happening, but I don't think there's any reason to talk about it at this point. So we're gonna just sort of assume that it works.
But you said that we don't want the URL, so it's asking for the URL.
So the URL should be that same web link, but with the extension .git at the end.
Sir, I'm getting a window that comes up that says enter credentials.
So that means you didn't put in the right URL. So let me put the URL in the class chat here.
That one, the first one, the battleship.git.
Yeah. So this is the URL you should use for. Now, I guess my chats are all collapsing on each other, so don't copy my path. But that should be the URL you put in the URL link there. And it shouldn't ask for authorization or anything. Okay.
That worked. Thank you.
Great.
Sir, I tried to download it in my Python, it's kind of like crashed and froze. So I'm just working on that right now.
Sorry, your PyCharm froze?
Yeah, my Python, it just it like froze and crashed. Now it's like it won't exit out or do anything.
All right. Well, I guess try to control delete and try again. So who's able to get to like the view that I have on my screen here? We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, almost everybody. All right, Jack, you're restarting. And Greg, are you able to get it to work now? Oh, we lost Jack.
Sir, Git is doing some. Oh, actually, it just finished. I'll try. So.
Was that success or?
It says the directory is not empty, but I don't even.
All right, so go ahead and like I posted in the chat there, go to that folder, replacing Donna with your M number, and delete any folders that are in there.
I'll work on that right now, sir.
Okay. All right, so the first step is to be able to get this project to run. Now, remember back last week when we talked about environments, I want to get the libraries that this project needs. We can find out what libraries it requires by looking at the requirements.txt folder or file. So we're going to open up that, and we see there's only one requirement, and it requires the exact version of Pygame 1.9.6. So we need to go out and grab this version of Pygame. Now later on, you might find yourself Googling around in the Pygame repositories and finding all the cool games you can make with Pygame and wanting to and pull someone else's game and see if you can play it. And they might use a different version of Pygame, like 1.8.3. And if you could only have one version of Pygame on your computer at a time, you would be out of luck. You wouldn't be able to play other people's games while you worked on Battleship. Right? And just to show you, right, Pygame is a pretty popular tool for creating all kinds of fun little games. And most of them are free. Right? Some kind of fun racing games and stuff like this. So you certainly could find yourself wanting to try out some of these programs, and they're all going to be using different versions of Pygame. So how can we have multiple versions of the same library on one computer?
Virtual environments.
Yeah, we're going to put them in little sandboxes. And the tool that manages our sandboxes, our environments, is called Anaconda. Okay, so we're going to ask Anaconda to create a new sandbox for this battleship application. And then in that sandbox, we're going to install Pygame, that particular version. Okay? So let's go ahead and do that. Under File, at the top here, we're going to go to Settings, and I need to configure the interpreter. Where is this project going to run? So click on Python Interpreter, and yours might be different from mine. You see I've got this invalid thing because I've been exploring some other stuff. You hit the gear there and say Add. Okay? And you should get this pop-up where you can pick several different ways of running this application. We're going to run it inside of an Anaconda environment. So let me wait and make sure everybody's here. I'm going to create a new environment. The location of that environment is up to me. I can pick anything I want. The default here is just the name of this particular application, and it's going to be stored in the Anaconda 3 M's directory. Okay? And we want to make sure we're going to use Python 3.7. That's quite important here because the Pygame 1.9.6 only works with Python 3.7. So a lot of tricky things with versions here, but we'll just get this set up and won't have to worry about it again. So let me pause at this page here. Don't click OK yet. Just sit here and let me know if you're having any issues.
Sir, I was still working on other things. It's File and then what's step?
Settings, and then type interpreter in the search bar at the top. Like you only have to type INTER in mine at least, and then you kind of get to the interpreter. Right, so if I click cancel out of here, you see interpreter, and then you hit this little gearbox here and say add. So there's a gearbox on the side. You want to click add, and you want to get to this view of how do I want to create a sandbox to run this application. Great. Anybody else having problems?
You said 3.7, right, sir?
3.7, that's right. So use a conda environment, use Python 3.7, and just sit for a minute. So Jack, were you able to get set up?
Yes, sir. I just got it. I'm sorry. Could you run through it one more time? I just got it running.
Sure. So you want to, I'll just cancel back out of here, say cancel. You want to go to File, and then you want to go to Settings, and there's a ton of settings. So the easiest way to find this thing is to type interpreter at the top, and the menu will collapse to only show things that have the word interpreter in them. And then you may or may not have any current interpreters, but go ahead and hit the gear, click add, and then we want to select a conda environment, and we want to use Python 3.7. And of course we need an interpreter. Why? Because Python is an interpreted language. We need to tell you, the computer, how to translate these text documents into ones and zeros that can actually run on your hardware. Okay? Now, a typical program that you write in C, somebody else would have done that and created the ones and zeros, and the only thing you would get from them would be exactly those ones and zeros, and that's what we call a .exe, like the executable. Right? The problem with the .exe is it's specific to one particular machine. It can only be run on a 64-bit Intel processor, right? And if you happen to have a 32-bit processor or you're on a Mac, you can't run an exe. The advantage of Python is that it's just a script file. Yes, there's a hassle of setting up the interpreter, but once you do that, the interpreter can interpret Python for any platform. All right, so anybody not at this screen? This is your last chance to admit, there's no problem being behind, right? There's zero reason to feel nervous or something about saying, hey, I don't see the screen. Okay. So we're going to click OK at this point. Again, making sure you have 3.7. Very important, double check 3.7 there. Click OK. And it's going to create this sandbox. And it's going to be a pretty empty sandbox. There won't be a whole lot in it. There won't even be Pygame. We're going to have to add that. Okay, so here's the pieces that come as part of the Anaconda kind of base sandbox. Fine. And we don't need to really worry about what that is. And we can go OK. At this point, we can look at requirements.txt and notice that it's not installed. We need to install this library into our sandbox. All right, and the tool we're going to use to install it, does anybody remember? Pip. Yeah, so we'll click on terminal at the bottom. That will pop up a little terminal. And notice what's on the left there is parentheses, battleship. So what's that parentheses mean there? Brooklyn, you remember
It's
what?
like our base.
If yours says base, we wanted to say something different, but
Like it's where you're operating now.
it's the virtual environment. It's your sandbox, right?
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
For that last step where you're doing the new environment, I keep getting this red thing that says not. Like environment location directory is not empty. And it won't let me click OK.
Okay, so the same thing. Like go to Windows Explorer then, and find that directory.
Go to that path and
Write that path. And so if you look here at the file settings interpreter, and the interpreter path there is users, your M number, anaconda3/env, right? And you should see that you already have Battleship there or something like that.
Yeah, I have like all of it, like Conda, Meta, DLO, everything is in that.
Okay, so if you do have it, well, let's use the Anaconda. So from the search bar, maybe this would also just reinforce what we're doing here. On the search bar at the bottom, go ahead and bring up Anaconda prompt. So type Anaconda in the search bar, and you should get Anaconda prompt. And then you could say conda env list. Can you see my text here? I'm not sure how clear it is. I'll make it bigger.
Yes.
Okay. So if I say conda env list, you see I have several in here now. To remove one of them, say conda env remove -n for the name of it, and I'm not using Python project 1 anymore.
And then so I do Battleship. I already have Battleship there.
And then you say conda env list again and make sure that there's nothing in there that says Battleship. So these are all my sandboxes.
I think that's gonna do it because I by accidentally like made a folder before downloading the one.
Okay, yeah. Great. So I mean, PyCharm is an excellent automation tool, but I think it can quickly become frustrating if you don't understand what's going on behind the scenes to go and fix the glitches that happen, right? So it's just trying to automate tasks that you could do by hand. Like you could say conda env create Battleship here, and that would be fine. But let's go ahead and cancel out of here. And now I want to show you, hopefully everyone should be at this terminal and their current environment should be Battleship.
Mine keeps like throwing an error at me as well whenever I try and create the environment.
And what's your error say?
I'm gonna run it again real fast just to see what it is.
Okay. And then maybe share your screen and we can take a look.
Yeah, it says disabled screen sharing.
Try again. Okay, so here you're yeah, Conda M's battle, but that's already created, right? The fact that you could even find that indicates you already have an environment called Battleship.
Yeah.
So
So when I run it, it says
that would be existing environment, right? So you see, you're trying to create a new environment at the top. You can switch that option box to plug in an existing environment, and that's what you were trying to do, right?
right.
So don't. There's already something called Battleship.
Okay.
You
But
see
then
that?
when
Wait,
I
don't no.
try and
Okay.
pick it. It's a oh.
So if you already that's Python 3.8 though, so that's not what we want.
So then what
So
do I do?
I would go ahead and under the you open up Windows Explorer and type Anaconda. Yeah. And that environment is not what we want. So you're going to say conda space env space list to show all the different environments you've created. And you see you've got Battleship in there. So and you've got two Battleships in fact. So let's go ahead and delete those. Say conda env remove -n space Battleship lowercase, and or whichever way you want to do it. Yeah, we'll need to
Probably
remove
both.
both of them, right? Make sure you spell it right.
Oh. Yep.
All right, and then remove the capital version. Mm-hmm. Great. And say conda env list. Great. Okay. So now when you go back to PyCharm here, all right, exit out of here and open up this dialog again so it can refresh its kind of view of the world. Settings. There you go. Mm-hmm. Okay, you see how it's red now? Okay,
Yep.
say add new environment, right? Conda, and now you don't get that problem. Now switch to 3.7, and you're good to go. Click OK. Anaconda M's. So go. Maybe the Anaconda didn't totally flesh it out. Go ahead and open that path. No, not from. Okay, yeah, you can do that. Sure.
Sorry, should I just delete
Yeah,
it?
you can delete it from there. However you want to delete that folder is fine. Yeah, sure.
Oops.
And then change it to. No. Stop. Cancel. This is why you're getting this problem. You want to put it at a location. It's going to create this location. So change
Okay.
backspace class demo and put the word Battleship. Don't click that folder.
Oh.
It's going to
Right.
create it for you. So backspace class demo.
Actually,
Backspace
yeah.
that. Yeah.
That's where it's in right now. Oh, just go like that.
Back. Okay, and now name it Battleship.
Oh, I see.
And it's going to create that for you. Yeah.
Oh, got it. And then go, okay.
Yeah. Yeah, if you had already created it and then told it to go put it there and be like, wait, you just created it, right? So it's confusing,
Okay.
but it needs to create it itself.
Got it.
Mm-hmm.
All right. I'm gonna stop sharing. Oh, wait. That's the error I got.
What do you have? Users, M's, Battleship.
And then it made it 3.82.
Okay. Click OK here. Let me walk us through the next step and get everyone started on a
Sure.
project. And I think through Zoom I can actually take and move your cursor as well. So we'll fix you up.
Okay.
Does anyone else having issues? Just to know.
Yes, sir. I thought I did exactly what you said, but mine's like being weird as well.
Okay, we'll check you guys out. So for the rest of us, we're at the Battleship prompt here. We're in our virtual environment. now I need to pip install my requirements. Okay, so we can say pip install, right? And I can just say pygame here. That's actually the right version. But you can also say pip install -r requirements.txt, and it will look through your requirements file and install pygame. And then we say pip show pygame and see that the version is 1.9.6. It came from here. The license is LGPL, which is a legal thing, meaning that it's free, but if you can't go and try to sell your game after you use this. It tells us where it is. This is very important, that it's in the virtual environment, that it's located under Anaconda 3 Battleship, right? And that's what allows me to run multiple pygame programs, even if they use different versions. Okay? And now that highlight will go away, and all is well. Okay? So now my sandbox is capable of running the program. It has the requirements needed. The last thing to do to actually start this project is to tell PyCharm where the main file is. How do you, this is a bunch of Python files, right? Is gameboard.py, we've got utilities.py. Which one of these is the actual Python program that needs to run? Some of these just define variables, some of them just have functions in them. Okay. The key piece at the bottom of main.py is saying, hey, if I'm the main program, go ahead and run main. So we need to tell, we can add configuration at the top here. We'll click plus. Okay, and this is a Python project. We can give it a name if you want, main or something. By default, right, it's going to already pick our interpreter, Battleship. I just need to tell it which file is actually the one to run. So I'm going to select main.py here. And then finally, at long last, right, we'll be able to click play here, and you should get the starting point for this lab, which is a screen with 2 blank blue rectangles.
So can you do the last step just one more time?
Sure. So you're going to need to create a configuration to run this. Edit configurations at the top here. You're going to need to click plus to create a new configuration. That should be a Python configuration. We'll talk much later in the class what these other things mean. Okay. And the only thing you need to specify is the script path. You need to show it, hey, main.py is really where my program starts its life.
After that, you just click OK.
You just click OK, and then you should see the add configuration is replaced with the name of the configuration you just created. Click play, and then the PyCharm will pop up with the visual interface there. Okay.
Perfect, thank you.
All right, and so this will be your project for the next 5 weeks. You won't have to go through creating a virtual environment in these steps. That's the initial work to set up a new project. But now we're in this project, we're just going to be using it. But you should understand conceptually what we had to do to get this set up. I mean, if the mouse clicks, you need a refresher on them, that's fine. But you should be able to explain the major steps required. Namely, you need to clone the code. We need to create a new virtual environment to run that code. We need to put the dependencies, all the libraries, we need to put those in the virtual environment. And then we need to actually run our code. And that's we'd be writing Python space main.py. And that's what you did here. That's exactly what happened up here. Okay? So in the same way, you could sit here at the terminal here and say Python main.py. That run configuration is just setting this up. Later on, when we start using the internet and there's more fancy things to do here, our runtime configuration will change. We'll add some flags to this command here. but that's all we need to do for now. Okay? And then to stop running the game, just click X and that's it. Okay, so at this point, you should start looking through the code. I'm going to talk to, I guess, Greg and Ricky and anybody else that isn't at this point. For those of you that are here, start clicking through the files in this project and see if you can piece together what's happening and how it works. You should also be able to find those line numbers where you're going to have to add your own code. Okay? All right, so who wants to go first here? Ricky, all right. Why don't you go ahead and share your screen. Okay. So yeah, okay. So let's go ahead and exit out of here, this view, yeah, and go back to the Anaconda terminal. Yeah. Okay, so say conda env list. Okay, so now say conda env remove dash n battleship, and then we'll just create the virtual environment right here in
The conda.
and yeah, right. Rather than using the hooks, which for whatever reason are messing you up.
Okay.
So the trick, we're going to want to make sure we use the right version of Python here. So the command is conda env create.
Yep.
And then dash name. And then create like battleship. Yep, space. And then Python equals 3.7. Yeah.
And then enter.
So I'm a little worried about your Anaconda setup. You can run. Can you run Python -v here? Can you say Python space -v?
Enter.
Yeah. But hit quit. Yeah, quit parentheses there. Capital V.
Oh, got it.
So you have 3.8.
Is that the right version?
So, your that's too new basically for Pygame. At least the one we're going to use in this class. So we need to Python 3.7. Your version of Anaconda should have come with all of these different Pythons. Run that command again. Just hit the up arrow and try to create that environment again. And let me just see what that error message is. And create, yeah, that one. Let's see what Google has to say about this. Oh, go ahead and hit the up arrow and remove the word env. So just kind of create.
Continue creating.
Oh, okay. So you have. Okay, so I think you did the same thing that who somebody else was doing earlier. So Don't create. Hit no and. All right. And now go to that folder. See the location that it specifies user M Anaconda 3 M's. Open that up in Windows Explorer.
Wait, which one?
See that at the target location, that's C:users M212046 Anaconda.
Yep, this one.
No. That in the error message it says warning, a directory already exists at the target location.
Yeah.
That location. That's what you want to go find. Yeah, and just paste that path up at the top there. Okay, and then go up one level. So click ends. And then delete this folder Battleship.
Okay. Sorry, my computer's running at the speed of slow.
Yeah, I guess.
Yeah, this happens every so often where the file explorer will just like, yeah, okay. I'm glad it didn't crash.
Yeah, I think it's because your documents folder is actually secretly being cloned over to Word Hall all the time, which is why we couldn't use the normal version of Python anyway. But go ahead and go back to the Anaconda thing, hit the up arrow, and see if you can run that command now. So just, yeah.
Proceed.
Yes. So this is what would happen in PyCharm where you see the little progress bar like creating conda environment. That's what it's doing here.
This is behind the scenes.
This is behind the scenes, exactly. All right, so good. Now you can say conda env list. env.
Oh, env list.
Yeah.
There we go.
Good, so you've got Battleship. So now go back over to PyCharm here, and rather than creating a new environment, we'll use an existing one. So go ahead and then hit the gear box there to the right.
Yep.
Click add, and then say existing environment, conda existing environment, and then
that one.
Yeah, click OK.
Okay. Wait.
Now you've still got. All right, so we need to remove the one that it thinks is there, which is not actually there anymore.
Okay.
Click OK here. Okay, so you should be able to remove this interpreter if you click on the settings, show all. And then remove that Battleship at minus. Remove the one above it that's invalid anyway. And you should only have, click OK.
Okay.
Yeah. All right. Yeah, that's fine. Now click add. Yeah, gear, add, existing. Okay. What have you got? What terrible thing has happened here? Name ID, name Battleship. Anaconda M's Battleship. It's a valid home path. Oh my gosh. All right. You're gonna put the Battleship there. The Battleship folder.
I have a good, but this one has a capital B in it.
Oh, okay.
So this one's different.
Okay.
Might have created one. Wait, I think I know where it might be. Maybe not.
All right, so go.
Oh, wait.
No, this is in a different spot. Make sure the capitalization matches there. Hit X there.
This one is like capital B, and then this other one is lowercase.
Yeah, but that's looking at something else. The path is what you want. That last line of the error message.
Right here.
Yeah, and so click OK on that error message there.
Wait.
And let's go back. Let me just look at that kind of setup one more time. The gearbox. show all. Oh, show all. That 3. Okay, so you don't even have one there. Click plus.
On environment.
Con down. All right. And then go ahead and say new environment on the top there, and let's just call it Battleship 2. So just put a 2 at the end of that. There you go. And click 3.7. Okay. Okay, click OK.
Magic.
Yeah. All right. Good. So click OK. And then click Add Configuration at the top here.
Am I doing something wrong?
It might take a minute. It's installing the skeletons and stuff, so you might give it a second. In the meantime, you can install Pygame, so you can go down to Terminal at the bottom of the page. You see Get, To Do, Problems, Terminal.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yep.
click Terminal.
And then,
You see how it says Battleship 2? That's good, right?
Yep.
So you want to say pip install space -R.
sorry, what phase?
No, space.
Oh, space -R.
Mm-hmm. And then space requirements.txt. So you want to go in that requirements file and have pip go through it and put everything together. And the only thing it needs to do is install Pygame.
Okay.
Okay. Now you should be able to go back up and click Add Configuration. I think hopefully it's done with its pieces. Okay.
Yes.
Hit plus. Python.
Battleship.
Yeah, the script path should be Battleship. Or the script path and then main.py. So open up the Battleship folder. Main.py. Great. Okay. And then you see Battleship 2 is selected as the sandbox, the environment. Click OK. And now you should be able to click play.
Nice.
All right. Good to go. So I don't know what the name conflict in your system was with the original Battleship. Maybe there's some other folders that we just didn't see. But,
Okay.
When in doubt, just add a number at the end of something and you won't get those name conflicts.
Sounds good. Thanks,
All
sir.
right, great. All right. Who's next here? Greg?
Yeah, yes, sir. I think it's me.
All right, can you go and share your screen?
Yes, sir. Okay, so I'll be honest, I kind of got lost when you were explaining the whatever that last fix was.
All right, so let's. We don't want the command prompt. That's actually not going to be a tool we'll use here. So just
I was
exit out
trying
of
to look
that.
up the condo list or environment list through that, but it's like not working.
Yeah, we don't necessarily need to use it unless there's a problem. So let's go ahead and under the settings, so file settings. And you've already got 3.7, so this is good. Your interpreter's already set, so click OK. Now we need to go to the terminal at the bottom. So you see on the bottom part of your screen, you've got Get, To Do, Problems, right? Terminal. Because you see the error message at the top, package requirement Pygame is not satisfied.
Yes.
Okay. So go ahead and say pip
Yes.
space install -R space between those things. So install is a command, and then the flag that we're going to say the name of the requirements file is requirements.txt. So requirements.
So it's -R space requirements or dash requirements?
It's going to be pip space install space -R space requirements.txt. Yeah.
TXT. Okay.
Right. So the idea here is we're telling pip to go look in that requirements file, and the only thing in there, if you double click on that requirements.txt file, is the name Pygame. Right? So go ahead and open that Pygame, the requirements.txt file up, just so you know what it looks like. This is all the libraries that your code requires to run. And that's it, right? Okay, so
Okay.
that's fine. And that will update eventually after this thing gets squared away. So click Add Configuration at the top there.
Add configuration.
On the right, where we click Run. We'd like to click Run, but we can. Click Add Configuration. Hit a plus sign. Mm-hmm.
Oh, that was fine.
Sure, they're the same, yeah. And then scroll down to Python. Mm-hmm. And then you can give it a name like, I don't know, Battleship or Main or something. It doesn't matter. And then the path to the main file is you need to show it that it's main.py. So open up the Battleship folder there and go to main.py. Great. So you see you're using the Battleship virtual environment. Perfect. This all looks good. Click OK.
So, sorry, can you just real quick, what is this doing? This is trying to put our new environment where the code is going to be run?
So normally, to run your code, you would have to open up the Anaconda prompt, that little black and white window, and navigate to your script file, the folder where everything is, and say Python space main.py. Right? You'd have to type that to run your program. That's kind of a hassle. So we're telling PyCharm how to do that for us, so that when we click the green play button, it's actually going to open up Anaconda in the background, switch the directory to the one you're specifying, and say Python space main.py.
Okay, that makes sense. So, very...
Mm-hmm. And now you see a green play button there at the top.
Then at this point we can go back to the main and then it'll run.
Yeah, and you don't even have to have that file open. You could be working in a different file. And since we've set up that configuration, it won't get confused. It'll go, oh, he wants to run the main.py.
Oh,
All right, so go ahead and click play up there. And there you go.
all right, excellent. Thanks,
Okay.
sir.
Yeah, great. All right. So, like anything, setting up new code structures is tricky, but we'll get better with practice. At this point, it's going to be back to actually writing Python code. Okay? Anybody else have problems? Everybody can see the two blue screens, blue squares. So last chance. No problem if you don't, but I want to make sure we get it all done. Okay. So let's talk about the code and then try to actually use Pygame to draw a few things and see what's going on. Okay? Use the book, the last chapter of that book talks about drawing shapes in Pygame. You can use that as a reference. But let me turn my stuff back on here. All right. And so if we go, let's just make sure everyone's clear on how this works. What is all this mess? All right. So if you go to Lab 3, which is the first part of Battleship, you'll see there's a PDF here. And your goal is to get the screen to look like this picture here. And so you're just going to be painting. We're not going to be doing any logic of actually a video game yet. You're going to need to draw lines and rectangles and text as if you were in PowerPoint, essentially. But we're going to be using Python to do it. All right? Now, Battleship, there's a lot of symmetry to the game. My board where I place my ships looks identical to the board where I make my guesses. So I could have you draw a bunch of lines and draw the letter A twice and the letter B twice, etc. But wouldn't it be nice if you only drew it once and then copied it over? Okay? Next week we'll start talking about something called objects, which are a really powerful idea in programming that you haven't probably seen yet, at least explicitly. They're used on the embed. That's where the dot notation for like motor dot speed or something like that. But we're going to really learn to use objects as first-class citizens here in creating our own objects as part of this project. So you only need to draw one of these, and the rest of the program logic will create the other board for you. Do you understand the task? All right, so let's go look at the code and see how it's set up. Okay, so we want to read it like a book. We start at the top. And now I've got a lot more requirements. Before, I just said import random. Now I'm importing a bunch of stuff. Primarily Pygame, right? That's the first import, of course. I'm importing something, the system tools, which we'll see why we need those. And other portions of Pygame. We don't necessarily need to worry about this syntax. But where is colors coming from? This is an interesting one. Colors is not something we specified in requirements.txt. It's not part of the base Python install. Can anyone figure out where colors is coming from?
Your colors.py file.
Yeah, so import will look in your local directory for other Python scripts with that matching name. Okay, and that's going to be how we build out more complex Python projects, is by referencing other files with the import command. Okay, so colors has a few things defined in it. Screen background, board background, foreground, and header. These are simply lists of 3 numbers. What do you think this cryptic thing means, these 3 numbers?
There are RGB values.
Okay, RGB values, yeah. They're colors, right? It turns out the human eye, you think you see all colors, right? You only really are sensitive to, you have 3 different kinds of cells, and we can kind of target each one of those with a red light, a green light, trick you into thinking you're seeing brown, or pink, or magenta, or yellow, or really any color. Right? So if we showed this to like another kind of animal, a computer screen would look like a joke. It wouldn't make any sense. But there is a trick to the human vision system where I can make you think you're seeing a bunch of colors by mixing red, green, and blue together. All right? And so that's what's going on. Every point on your screen is actually 3 lights. A red light, a green light, and a blue light. I can turn them on with a different intensity. And that's how I mimic different colors. And so you can find RGB values for any color just using Google or any number of other online tools, right? But I can move this slider around, okay, and pick this fierce shade of green, and you see the RGB value for that is 78, 120, 160, and 68. Okay? Great. So we can go back then and populate these, and I've put these together so that our game looks normal. If I change one of these values, and I would encourage you to do this, go around and poke at some of the code here. 0. What does that make my game look like? Now, you actually won't have, let's see, the header's not, you don't have that yet, but let's see the screen background. I'll put a 0 there. Let's play that. And now the background is some weird teal. Okay? Once you change, since now we're using Git, there's going to be some color hints that pop up in your editor. When you edit a file, it will change from white to blue, indicating there's something different in there. Once you open that up, the line that you changed will have a blue margin on the left. Okay, so you can always go back and see what you've done. You can just hit Control-Z, and now you see the color of that file has gone from white or blue back to white, and there's nothing in the margin. Okay, so that's the idea for using imports, and there's other things in here. Then I define some names that are going to be helpful for drawing. and then I drop into main. Okay, this part here is just the mechanics for starting up Pygame. I want to create a new window, and the size of the window is going to be computed based on these variables here. I could just say I want a 400 pixel wide window by 300 pixels. But by building it, we call this parametrically, right, I can actually rescale my game based on, hey, if I want the blocks size to be different, right now they're 30 by 30 pixels. Each square on the game board is 30 by 30 pixels. If I think that's too small, then I can change that to 40 and they'll get bigger. And I'll get a bigger window. Okay, so nothing to worry about too much. The title, I'll set the title of the window, USNA Battleship. Okay. Here, next week, we'll talk about this syntax here, but I'm creating an object called a game board. I'm creating two boards, my board and their board. Okay. And then later on, I draw those boards to the screen. My board.draw, their board.draw. Okay. If I open up gameboard.py, where this thing is actually defined, we can talk about this stuff later. What you need to do is inside this initialize code, you should do some Pygame drawing actions here. Okay? And so in a moment, we'll go and just play around and try to draw a small square just to convince ourselves that Pygame works. But your code, whatever you draw here, is going to show up in two places. Right? There are two boards in this game, my board and their board. And so whatever you draw here will actually show up twice. All right?
Sir, can I just ask a quick question about that blue line you're talking about? Does that just mean you've altered it from the Git repository?
Yes.
It's different than that? Okay.
Yep. Right. And you can see actually in the bottom here, you can see Git. You can click it, right? And if you click it, you see it pops up with the commits, the commit graph. And right now you just have lab 1 start. I created that. Eventually, you will, at the end of this week, or for next lab, you will make a commit, and then your name will pop up in the history chart there. Okay. But we won't talk further about that right now. All right. So the biggest chunk of code you're going to write is right here. That's going to be where you draw the black lines, where you put the 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and the ABCs on the headers and of the rows and columns. Okay? The other portion you need to add code to is to draw the you and them titles above each board. Okay? So I think we have enough time at the end of this class period here to just go over how to start drawing a little bit with Pygame. All right, so why don't we go ahead, and I know this isn't going to be the right thing, but we'll just explore it, and then you can delete it and modify it however you see fit. Let's go ahead and go into gameboard.py and try to draw a red square. Okay? That'll be our goal. All right. So the first line of this is filling the whole canvas here with the board background color, which is defined in that colors file, right? Now let's try to draw a new rectangle. So we're going to use it's going to be a Pygame function. So I'll start Pygame, okay, and dot to use a function that's available through Pygame. Draw. So this is a subpart of this library. And the thing that I want to draw is a rectangle. Okay? So the first parameter to this function is the canvas. Like, where should I paint this? What is the object that I can paint this rectangle onto? And the game board has its own canvas, its own little part of computer memory where you can paint. And that is captured in the value of this image variable. So self.image. And we'll talk what self means and stuff like this. But understand that, like, the game board is this object, this thing, and one of the things that it can do, that it has, is a canvas called an image. And so I want to paint a rectangle onto that image. Okay? And so PyCharm is going to helpfully give me a hint on the different pieces I need to pass this function. The next parameter is color. All right, so to make a straight up red rectangle, how much red would that be? A lot of red, right? The maximum amount of red is 255. No green and no blue. Okay? Now, the last parameter to this function is actually something that can specify a rectangle. And I guess maybe this would bring us back to a bit of geometry. What do we need to know to fully specify a rectangle on a two-dimensional grid? How many values would we need?
Length and width.
Okay, length and width. That would give me the shape, but I could still translate that anywhere in space. Like, the aspect ratio is fixed, right? In the length and the width, fine. But I also need to anchor it.
Coordinates?
Yeah, so in addition to length and width, I also need an XY coordinate. And there's different ways of specifying that anchor point. You could say, well, this anchor point is the center of the rectangle, or this anchor point is the top left corner, right? And we'll find each one of these ideas useful as you shift shapes around in space. But I'm going to create a rect object, pygame.rect, and this is going to require the anchor points. And let's go ahead and put this at x20, y20. And then the width and the height. All right, and at this point you might be like, how does he know this maniacal ordering of parameters? And I'm totally lost. And let me show you how to find all this information out. But just so that you get something on the screen, go ahead and copy this directly.
Sir, could you just scroll up like 2 lines? It's just a little cover. Yeah, perfect.
And now you should have the lovely game screen here. You see, we only drew one rectangle, but it showed up twice because we've got 2 game boards. And well, again, on Monday, we'll have a lecture about objects and how they're wired together and everything else. But for now, just take it for granted that somehow these are, coming together. All you need to know is that the canvas is called self.image. And you need to use a bunch of Py functions to paint on that canvas. All right? Let's try to draw a line next. Well, let me stop. Let me show you where the documentation for all this stuff is. So this is the reference on how to draw and do everything there is to do with Pygame. Okay? Pygame is pretty popular, and so there's plenty of other tutorials. I'll paste this link here. If you just Google Pygame tutorial, you'll come up with all manner of people's blogs and showing you, cool ways to do different things. But this is the reference, kind of like MATLAB, where you say help draw a line or something. So I would recommend first using the book. The book, that last chapter, talks about using Pygame to get like a good overview for it, and then use these documentation to fill in any gaps if you want to know what the different parameters are. And then finally, you can Google around and just find Joe Schmo's tutorial on Pygame too, if that makes sense to you. Okay? We're not going to be using a lot of the Pygame functionality beyond just drawing shapes. There's more to it that we're just not going to need. All right, and perhaps at this point you can see why we don't do graphic programming in like EW200. All right, this is a lot to use. It's very powerful, right? But there's a lot of parameters and a lot of overhead beyond just learning how for loops work. But now that you know how for loops work and you're a master of the Python programming language, now we can start to have some fun and actually build real things. Okay, so that's where you'd go to learn more about these and how I recommend learning about them. Let me just cover the last two pieces you'll need to know: how to draw a line and how to add text. Okay? So let's draw a line. And so that's going to be another draw command. So we're going to say pygame.draw. And now, rather than rect, it will be line. We're going to put it on the same canvas. And the color could be anything you want. You could pick color.foreground, and that's what you should pick when you're writing this. That's the foreground color, and that way your game looks consistent. But feel free to just put something crazy in here. Let's do all blue. No, blue won't show up well. Let's do 255 there. Some fierce green. It's going to be very neon. Yeah? And what do you need to specify? How do you specify a line? What do we need to know?
2 points.
2 points. And how do we specify a point? Well, how much do we need to know? Maybe somebody knew. Jack, what do you think? In two-dimensional space, we're on a plane here. Fortunately, thank goodness, we're not in 3 dimensions.
I guess like the X and Y thing?
Yeah, so we need 2 XY points. Okay? So that's exactly what we'll pass. We'll pass 2 lists. Each list will have 2 items. Start position is going to be an X and Y pair. Maybe we'll start at 0, 0 at the origin and go to 40, 40. Okay. Notice at the end here, the last parameter it has a default value. The width is set to 1. And so if I don't specify anything, I'll get a line that has a width of 1. If I specify width equals 5, I'll get a very thick line. But that's an optional parameter. I'm going to put it here because I'm a little worried that green line isn't going to look good on my Zoom screen. So that's why I'm going to add the width here. But you don't need the width. So let's go ahead then and run our new game, which is looking even better than before. Oh, what did I do here? Let's not do the width for now. Let me make sure that that's actually a valid parameter there. Okay, so yeah, I've got this silly little green line. But this brings up a good point. Where's the origin in computer graphics? In the top left corner. It's not in the center. it's not at the bottom left. So in like MATLAB, when you're doing a plot, the origin, usually we talk about that being in the left bottom corner. When we're plotting in math, just in a graph paper, maybe it's in the middle of the page. But in computer graphics, at the top left corner. And it's positive going away from there. The reason for that is historic. It used to be that computers were actually literally painted with a beam of electrons that would sweep across the screen in a pattern, and it would start, the electron gun would start at the top left and paint a row, or drop to another row, and so you would access a pixel or specify a pixel by how far down the beam would travel and how far over the beam would travel. Just a fun fact, right? But make sure you are aware of the geometry of these planes, that the origin is in the top left, and it's always positive. We'll never have a negative pixel. Okay? So there is rectangles and lines. The last thing we need to do is to create text. Now, the book talks about, there's several things for text. Like for rectangle, it's a geometry problem, right? We need to know length, width, and an anchor point. For text, we also need to have like a font file. Right, so we need to go to the system and find a font file, and then we need to create a rectangle to put that font into in painting. So there's a little bit more to text, and I don't want you to get wrapped around the axle with it. So I've created a utility function for you that will create a text image. So let me show you how to use this. And you don't have to. You can, after you read the book or look online, there are other ways to create text. But this is the easiest, okay, in this project. What I'm going to get out of this function is a text image. It's actually its own little canvas. And it's coming from the utilities file, which is actually one of the files in this project, utilities.createText. And then you can just give it the text you want. Hello Pygame, for example. Okay. And then the font size. And so maybe 24, and then the color. Again, RGB, right? So that's going to create a canvas, a new little piece of paint, right? You can imagine it's like a little cutout. Okay? What I need to do is to take this cutout and glue it somewhere on my image canvas. That process is called blitting. Again, historic reasons there too, but the idea that I can take these canvases, imagine like literally pieces of paper, and I can take a cutout of one piece of paper and paste it onto another. So I'm going to take my image canvas and say self.image.paste something onto me, blit this text, and where do I want to put it? I want to put it at some location, maybe 50, 50. And so let's run our file again. And if that doesn't get you excited for retro gaming, you know, I don't know what will. Okay? And the last point here is that Pygame draw commands operate in order, which makes sense. Just as if you were to literally gluing and pasting, you see the first thing we did was a rectangle, and that's on the bottom, then the line, and now this text. If I were to move the text, it would actually be above the green line. If you wanted the green line higher than the rest, just run that command last. Okay, so you should be able to run variations of draw line, draw rect, and this two-line thing for text, and actually create all the graphics for this game board. All right, look very carefully at the assignment, and it tells you exactly how many pixels they should be from each other, the size of the fonts, everything specified. And you need to follow it as close as possible. If your lines are in the wrong spot, next week when we start adding ships, the ships are going to look weird. They're going to be, you know, splitting across spaces and things like that. Okay? So each week you'll be responsible for completing this lab. All right. Your submission is for, depending on the type of lab, your submission type may vary, but this lab, I'm going to just do it by you recording a small screencast of it, right? So what I'm looking for is you starting a PyCharm like this, clicking play, and then showing me, the result. And that's all you need to send me. Okay, there's way too many files here. I don't want to see that pop in Google Classroom for now. All right, to make a screencast in Windows, you can just hit the window key and G, and that's like some gamer tool, right? Because gamers love screencasting. And then you can do a screen recording. You click record there. You'll create a little movie. Make sure it's less than a minute, and then upload that to the Google Drive with your name. Please save the file as like Jack or Thomas, however you want to do your name. Sound good? Okay. It's a lot, I understand, but I think the result is more exciting than if we just did toy examples the whole time. And my goal by the end of this is that you'll understand what real programs look like beyond just toy examples. Okay, so don't hesitate to reach out to me by email. I'm happy to have EI. All those things are virtual but on the table. So let me know if you have problems, and I'll see you on Monday. Okay. Any questions? Okay. Get excited for early 90s video games. Great.
Thanks, sir.
Yep.
Thanks, sir.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, sir.
Great.